Okay, now we're going to talk about marketing practices. And I'm going to make some general statements first. You have to remember that the goal of the Director of Insurance, the Department of Registration, Financial, is to protect the public. So a lot of that includes some common sense things. You can't approach people in a compromised position. You can't try and mislead or misrepresent. You can't give them knowingly false information. You can't lie to somebody. You have to be as forthright and honest as you can in marketing the product. And that's what this section talks about. And we're going to go into, a lot of this is going to be definitions. So let's talk about unfair practices and let's define them. Any of the following practices, if committed in violation of this section, are hereby defined as unfair trade practices. Boycott, coercion, intimidation. What does that mean?
That's to force someone to sign up for a policy or by threat or force.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. It's two different. It's being in bed with two different companies, forcing somebody to buy one product over the other because it's in your financial benefit. Having someone by the action of what you're doing to create a monopoly. Those are all things that are covered in here. Defamation. Defamation is when you talk poorly about another company. There's some companies out there that are competitors of ours. And I've heard people say, oh, well, they're no good. Well, guess what? You just committed a license law violation. And a license law violation is what? It's a Class D felony. So there's a quote, with great power comes great responsibility. You guys have to understand that not only do we have a tremendous opportunity with Legal Shield, but in the states where they require you to be licensed, you have a tremendous responsibility and subsequently a liability if you fail to honor that. So defamation, making or publishing, disseminating or circulating directly or indirectly, or aiding and abetting or encouraging the making, publishing, disseminating or circulation of any oral or written statements or any pamphlet which is critical or derogatory to the financial condition of any insurer or malicious in nature. So you can't say things about other companies. You can't say, oh, well, that company's no good, they're going to go out of business. Or they defrauded a bunch of their people. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's true. You still can't say it. You have to be really careful. False information in advertising. Again, these are common sense. Don't misstate things. Don't print something that's not true. In the event that an action by the director is to not renew or deny the I'm going to them. Wait, woo, hello, okay. Making false statements or entries, knowingly filing false information, okay, misrepresenting or falsely advertising the insurance policies. So, for example, there's some things very specific that we will do. We'll write letters and we'll make phone calls on your behalf as part of the plan. But if you say we will make an unlimited number of phone calls and an unlimited number of letters on the subject matter without saying we'll make an unlimited number of phone calls for you, one per subject matter, on an unlimited number of topics, that's okay. But if you don't put the one per subject matter, that's not okay. You have to be really careful about what you're saying. It has to be completely clear. So there's a couple other things, and a lot of us have been guilty of this before we knew what it was. You can't make statements about income. You can't coerce somebody to join based on saying, well, I made X number of dollars. So you got to be real careful about what you say. Misrepresenting is key, but you also want to be careful what you represent, even if it's accurate. Rebating. Here's what that means. Yeah, it means don't do it. But you can't pay for anyone's policy. Period. Any portion of it. You can't say, well, if you buy a membership for, a $27 membership, I'll give you $30 back. Now, you also can't pay for anybody directly. Now, the one exception is if they're family. You can pay for family members. Like, I can buy if I believe my mom needs to have our service, I can pay for that for her. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So rebating is paying or allowing or giving or offering to pay or to allow to give directly or indirectly an inducement to such insurance or annuity, any rebate of premiums payable on the contract. You guys follow me on that?
Yep.
So that is not only a terminable offense, it is a prosecutable offense. So remember that what we do, we're governed and licensed to do. Yes?
As far as for test purposes, basically you just need to know there's no rebating. And if you get that, there's like, I remember a couple of them, there was like 2 or 3 questions on one test and I took about that. So you just got 2 right.
Yeah. If it says, in which circumstance can you offer any portion of, and 2 of them say, if any of them say in this circumstance, or this circumstance, they're wrong. If it says under no circumstances, that's going to be right. So, perfect. Okay, unfair discrimination. We all know what discrimination is. But basically, it's making a determination on whether or not you're willing to sell somebody a product based on certain protected classes or areas. There's different terminology for it, but based on where they live, what's involved, their marital status, their military status, their familial status. Any of those things can be considered a violation if that's your determination based on whether or not you're willing to sell someone a product. Make sense? Okay. There's a lot of this in here that I haven't highlighted. I encourage you to read it, but it's not, a lot of it's the same thing restated over and over and over again, and a lot of it is directed specifically to like financial planning and things like that, but it is in the subsection of the state test, the sections that we're supposed to cover for the test, so it's included in here. Okay. We covered rebating, misrepresentation, defamation, unfair discrimination, boycott and coercion. Okay, now we're going to talk about cancellation. No insurer shall cancel or refuse to write a policy or renew a policy based on age, place of residence, race, sex, color, creed, national origin, ancestry, lawful occupation, including the military service. So in other words, you can't refuse to issue a policy or cancel a policy based on any of the already mentioned restricted reasons. You cannot discriminate. You cannot make a decision on whether or not you're going to let somebody purchase your service based on a protected class. You have to make it available to anybody. Bless you. Okay. Now, and all of that is clearly defined. All these are listed out. Sex or marital status discrimination, listed. Different things are covered in here. We don't need to go through those individually because you can go through those on your own. It's basically every class that you can possibly consider just about is going to be a protected class now. You cannot make a decision based on those reasons. Make sense? Okay. Cancellation or non-renewal. Now there's a lot of definitions in this section, and mainly this is the definitions. So I'm going to ask you to go through and review the definitions, but it basically says who's the insurer, what is the policy. So it allows you to just go through and kind of look at that. But the grounds for cancellation, a notice of cancellation of a policy shall be effective only if it is based on one of the more following reasons. So I'm going to go through this. Non-payment of premiums. If someone doesn't pay you, you're okay to not provide service to them. Fraud or material misrepresentation. Okay, if they represent that they're one thing and they're something else. If they don't give you the right information. If they say that they're married and they're not, or whatever it is, material misrepresentation is a reason to not renew. Okay, the named insurance or any occupant of the property has been convicted of a crime arising out of acts of increasing hazard to the insured. Now, what does that mean? It's going to be really applying towards the sale of property and casualty type insurance, and that's what that's going over. But as you go through this, it also talks about if somebody intentionally comes after your company. If they're causing potential material harm to you as a company, you have the right to refuse service to them and cancel their policy. So, notice of cancellation and how it must be given. You have to give an insured how many days?
30.
This is the participation portion of the event. How many days? 30. You got to give them 30 days. Pretty much any time you're going to give somebody notice of something, it has to be 30 days. Okay? And that's prior to the date of cancellation. Now, cancellation or refusal to issue on the grounds of a prohibited act exceptions. It says, no insurer shall cancel or refuse to write under any of the protected classes. Sound familiar? We just talked about that on issuing a policy. Now we're talking about it on again with renewal of a policy. Nothing changes. Brian, did you have a question?
Yeah, did you want to put in there notice of cancellation?